Buying a washing machine used to be easy. You could go to a store and know that any unit you were going to buy was going to end up, well, being pretty awesome. Today, there are even more names in the market, and a lot of them are just, well, bad. At least that's in my opinion. I've been fixing and selling appliances for about a decade now at my store, and my hope is that by the time this video is over, you're going to know more than the person selling you the washing machine at your local store. Well, I hope. Over the past year or two, I've spent about $25,000 on purchasing different washing machines that you see here and a lot of others. And the way that we're doing this video is I'm going to rank all the machines based on a methodology I came up with. Here's how it works. I polled hundreds of technicians and asked them what styles out there were the most reliable, what they owned, and what they would recommend so that every sort of machine could be considered. Top load, front load, stack, combo, and miniature designed as well as portable for this methodology. But we didn't just pull text, we actually pulled consumer reviews on every make and model out there. I pulled well over 1 million consumer reviews, and we tracked and aggregated all of this information through the various retailers across the United States. Then finally, I looked at Consumer Reports independent tests. They don't cover every model, but there's enough to help create the rankings. Each source has its own limitations for sure, but when you take all three of those data sources together, well, I think that's a good idea in how we came up with these rankings. So let's go ahead and dive into top loads, front loads, compacts, stackables, combos, and even the portable minis for the next few minutes. Since this channel is in the United States, we have to talk about top-load washing machines first. About 2 in 3 households use or prefer them since they tend to be more affordable and are easier to maintain versus front-load washing machines. And for top loads, there's always the argument of impeller versus agitator. What should you use, or what is best, and which ones are rated better? Well, there are trade-offs between units with agitators and impellers. Units with agitators are going to wash your clothes faster on average. A unit with an agitator typically will run for about 45 to 50 minutes on average or even heavy-duty modes, whereas a unit with an impeller is going to run for 65 to 70 minutes to get a similar level on stain removal from your clothes. But then why would units with wash plates or impellers exist? Why would you use them? Well, they are far more water efficient than agitator units. They have a bigger surface area to scrub your clothes at the bottom, even though it takes a little bit longer. And if water efficiency, because you pay a lot for water and sewer matters, then you may want to consider an impeller machine. Also, units with impellers are able to wash comforters and other large, super bulky items with ease, whereas units with the agitator take up more space in the same exact size of drum. So there are trade-offs there to consider. Now, with all of those things being said, here is the top 10 washing machine list in the United States currently. Units that have options with and without impellers. I merged them together in case you prefer one over the other because they tend to rank somewhat similar, and I didn't want to flood the list with the same recommendations. The WT8600 has the highest scores across the board and is essentially the #1 washing machine on our list. I have a review for its slightly smaller capacity cousin, the WT8405, and it ran pretty darn well in our tests, and I have a full video explaining everything in it. It could easily wash comforters and large blankets without much trouble. I put it through its paces and threw tons of clothes in, and it worked out great. Most technicians are going to tell you that LG washing machines are pretty darn reliable in comparison to a lot of other brands. Now, they're not perfect. They are not the #1 system in the US, but they're essentially in second place, which is good enough to earn them on average top scores when you factor everything in. One of the huge advantages with LGs across the board is that they are very efficient on water and electricity consumption when you factor the spin speed in. If water consumption and electricity matter a lot to you, then LGs are going to be a great choice across the board in the different styles and capacities. A WT6105 is going to be smaller capacity and have slightly less features than the 8400 and 8600, but in general, when you tear the machines down, they're going to be very similar from one to the other. And of course, if you looked at the list by now and you remove Consumer Reports from the equation, you're clearly going to have Speed Queen as the far and away #1 choice among technicians, and they slightly outranked LG for consumers across the board. If you want a simple washing machine that's going to last for 20 years, the TC5 and the TR7 are going to be amazing choices. You cannot find them at almost any big box store because Speed Queen still works mostly with smaller independent retailers. But if you can find a store that sells them in your area, they're a fantastic choice for reliability and simplicity if those are the top things that matter to you. Now, I tested this TC5 recently and it does an amazing job cleaning clothes in under 40 minutes. However, when it came to all the tests, the tub is the smallest capacity on the market. It's a trade-off between fast, high-quality wash speeds and the capacity, but also water usage is extremely high on the Speed Queen units, so if that matters a lot, then the TC5 may not be a fantastic choice. Now, in 6th through 10th place, we get a few different makes and models out there for budget-friendly machines. GE has two machines in the GTW 485 and 585 machines. They're pretty similar, with the 585 having some additional control features, but it's the same transmission, the same drum, and according to techs, GE has seen quite a few improvements in reliability lately versus the other budget machines that I've recommended in the past, which were mainly Whirlpool BMW type machines. And of course, that Samsung is definitely controversial being on the list. The WA55 CG7100 is kind of a question mark. Why did it get on the list? Well, consumers reviewed it very favorably in our composite rankings, and Consumer Reports did it some favors as well. Their quality seems to have improved since they started moving manufacturing on some of their models to the United States. They still have a lot of improvement to do because this is the only model that made it anywhere close to the top 10, but it may be a consideration for you if you need max capacity at an affordable price. Samsung tends to be one of the lowest rated brands on the list for reliability among technicians because there's been a lot of bad experiences with Samsung, especially in the past 5 to 10 years. Now, with the top 10 out of the way, how can you keep a top-load washing machine running as long as possible in good condition? Well, you want to make sure not to overload it. Read the use and care guide that comes with your machine on how to load clothing properly. Every style agitator or impeller system will have different rules on how much clothing you should put in the washing machine around the agitator or on the wash plate. If you're going to have mechanical problems with the machine, oftentimes they stem from the washer being loaded improperly or overburdened in a way that damages the machine over the long term. And now that we're outside the top 10, what should you actually avoid for top-load washing machines? Well, I don't want to name and shame every single model out there that I don't like, but here is what I would avoid. I would definitely avoid off-brand top-load washing machines. These would include off-brand names from big box stores like Insignia and Criterion. I'd also avoid Element, Hisense, and Midea currently. The issue with these machines are that they don't have very good factory or warranty support, so if they end up breaking down, you are going to have a major problem finding technicians to work on the machines, and even harder if you want to do DIY repairs to fix it outside of warranty. That isn't to say that they don't work okay, they work reasonably well, but if they break down, you're just going to scrap the machine instead of repair it, and that's something I don't want any customer to do. Now, as wild as it sounds, I would avoid Maytag top-load washing machines. I would dare say avoid every single one of them currently. There are massive and pervasive problems on many of the lower end models especially. They scored extremely low among consumers and technicians because the current revisions manufactured by Whirlpool have resulted in systemic control board failures that remind me of, well, the Maytag Neptune. I would also avoid any Whirlpool VMAX washing machine unless it has a 5-year warranty on it from an independent Whirlpool or Maytag store. They're machines that have the direct drive 10-year warranty label on them. They have multiple reliability failure points. They have cheap electronics in them. They have shoddy wiring in them, and we're going to cover a lot of those fixes going forward on the channel, but I simply would not trust them to last more than 3 or 4 years for the consumer, and consumers actually rated them as being the worst washing machine out there. Despite Samsung also having one unit in the top 10, all their other machines tended to score pretty low, especially if they were the cheaper models, so I would avoid those units because they tend to be a little bit failure prone. Now, if your favorite unit didn't make the list or you have questions about something outside the top 10 or maybe the bottom 5, I'm going to have a master list in the description that's going to track every unit that I did the research for, because I came up with about 150 models that we looked at to just build the top 10 ranking. Now, with top loads out of the way, let's talk about front load machines. Why would you consider a front load machine? It's kind of similar between the agitator versus impeller argument, time versus efficiency. Front load machines are vastly more water and energy efficient than pretty much any top load machine on the market, but they can take longer to wash your clothes. And in general, any front load machine is going to take longer for the same exact stain removal that a top load will, but there are some trade-offs there that make the front loads beneficial. In general, a front load is going to use 4 to 10 gallons less of water per load of clothes, especially less if you like to use the deep water or deep fill option on a top loader to get your clothes clean. The gap is even larger if you are upgrading from a machine that is older than 15 years. It's a difference kind of between taking a shower and taking a bath to get clean. Both are going to clean you, but one does it way more efficiently. Another benefit of a front loader that no one typically talks about is that the spin mode is much faster on a front load versus a top load. Most top load machines are going to run between 800 and 850 RPMs, whereas a front loader is going to run between 1200 and 1400 RPM on most models out there. Spinning water out of clothes using your electric motor is vastly cheaper than trying to run a load of clothes through the dryer. If you factor the water and electricity savings, you're looking at a much lower life cycle cost if you are paying for water and electricity. Now, if you're wondering exactly about how the math works out, here is a list of a few major models that I like or I've researched over the past year, and what the mechanical costs are, the water costs are, and what the electrical costs are on the machines, even if the front loader doesn't last as long. And you find out that in the end, they can be quite a bit more affordable over the life of the unit. Here is the list of the washing machines that are the best front load units on the American market currently. The top list is dominated by various LG and Electrolux models. Among technicians, LG tends to be the most commonly recommended brand to buy in the US, and in my personal opinion, along with the way the techs voted about the #1 washing machine, if they had to choose just one model, the WM4000 is the best unit on the market. Why is it only ranked number 4 among techs though? Because the list included total top load reliability scores as well, so it was the 4th ranked overall, and some of the top loaders ranked a little bit more reliable. Also on the list, Electrolux offerings beat LG when it came to consumer reviews. I was not actually surprised about that because when I polled technicians, I noticed that younger techs stated that Electrolux is becoming a often recommended brand, but they haven't been out in the field long enough to endorse for reliability because technicians tend to wait about 5 to 6 years to say a design is good or bad. Now, yet again, somehow on the list, Samsung is on the charts somehow in the top 10. Consumers rated the new bespoke model front load washing machines quite well, and Consumer Reports did as well. Now, of course, technicians can't be fooled about that stuff. They rank near the bottom at 16th place, but they have improved over time. I haven't tested a bespoke washing machine on my channel yet, but I did test the bespoke AI combo unit, which was essentially the 9th ranked Samsung machine on the list, and the wash quality was fantastic. Samsung bespoke products are a complete overhaul of the garbage that made them notorious in the 2010s, which has arguably improved their rankings on the list, at least for the bespoke models. Now, having said that, the technicians rated front-load washing machines actually more reliable across the board than top-load washing machines, but that does come with a big catch. They did not rate them as repairable as top-load washing machines. What I mean by that is if your top-load washing machine breaks down, it's going to be less frequent, but it's going to be more expensive to fix overall, meaning you may have to throw the machine out more frequently than a top loader. Now, when it comes to the fact that we never revealed the #1 choice among technicians, it's because we used a composite list, and the Speed Queen FF7009 front load washer was 12th on the list. Even though I love this model, consumers actually rated it a little bit lower, which dropped it out of that top 10 place. Maybe Speed Queen will release a new model on the unit and call it the FF3 here, and then when they export it to Japan, maybe they'll call it FF6, and suddenly consumers will catch on to how good the machine is. But talking about great units, what should you avoid in a front-load washing machine? Well, in our methodology, and when I say our methodology, I really mean my methodology, there's no one behind the camera. These are the things that I would avoid when it comes to front-load washing machine. First, like top loads, I would avoid off brands like Equator, Insignia, Criterion, Midea. Again, they're very hard to find parts for, so even if the machine works well and operates okay, which they do, you're not going to find parts if they break down, which is going to be a big mess. I've had trouble finding even drain pumps for some of these front load models just because they're so obscure in the United States, and I would rather have a machine that is a little bit more expensive that I know I could repair than a machine that would arguably run a little bit better and I wouldn't be able to fix. But consumers rated those machines really low anyway, so in general, off-brands did not favor very well in any part of our rankings. Other units that I would avoid would be from Whirlpool. They're high-end front-load washing machines, the ones that have the rectangular operating system on them, did not rate very well among technicians or consumers. Now, Whirlpool low-end units that have your standard physical dials tended to rate pretty well on the list, just below 10th place, or ranked just barely in the top 10. Another brand that I would avoid would be, well, GE. I have had a lot of problems that we've documented in our videos on their ultra fresh units. The reliability among GE front load washing machines on our composite list was actually one of the lowest scores among technicians. They were challenging Samsung for lowest place, which says a lot about where GE is currently in the market. Operationally, they're great machines, but they have a lot of electronic issues that I would stay away from. Now, it's possible that GE has fixed some of those models that did rank quite well in our index currently, but I personally would stay away from them. And of course, even though I'm dogging GE a little bit, what would rank lower than a GE washing machine? Why, low-end Samsungs, of course. They ranked at the bottom of our list when it came to front loaders that you could find commonly in stores. There was a marginal difference between high-end Samsungs and low-end Samsungs in terms of reliability. So if you are looking at some of the cheaper models of Samsung, I would definitely avoid them at this time. Now, when it comes to maintenance, it's absolutely even more key on a front load than a top load unit for a great experience. You want to make sure to run the tub wash cycle once a month. And if you can, make sure to use a washing machine cleaner like our Wash Bomb formula or fresh washing machine tablets from Whirlpool, or you could use Active as well. Any washing machine cleaner works. The reason I say Wash Bomb is, well, it's the one we make and it is the one that actively supports the channel. Another thing that is key that matters when it comes to front load washing machines is to open up the door and leave it slightly available for fresh air to come in, and clean the gasket out by wiping it with a cloth after every use. If you do that, you'll prevent mold from forming in the washing machine, and it will smell fresher and operate quite a bit better when it comes to cleanliness. And with front loaders out of the way, let's modify that just a little bit and talk about the new kids on the block, which is the combo washer dryer system. Although they've been around in various formats for a while, new heat pump systems have radically changed how clothes get washed and dried, making them more convenient than ever to just throw your clothes in the machine and be done with all the mess. A combo system is going to use significantly less water and significantly less electricity through the heat pump action than any other unit on the market. In the end, if you can keep that unit running, it's going to save you an incredible amount of money, if that matters though. The jury's still out on how long these things are actually going to last. The washing machine part of the combo is literally just a standard washing machine that you would find from the major brands GE, LG, and Samsung, with all the secret technology being in the dryer portion. There are older legacy combo models out there, but they have far lower composite ratings, and there's a huge gulf between 3 and 4. I've made videos on each of the big 3, and make sure to watch my videos to better educate yourself on the machines, because there are big advantages to them, but they need a lot of TLC. And speaking of TLC, there are some scrubs when it comes to the combo units in the rankings. Here is the composite ranking of all 6 of the units that we have of the major heat pump units and the older condensing style systems. You're going to notice there's a clear distinction between the top 3 and then the bottom 3. The bottom 3 ones aren't rated as well, making them, well, the Crystal Jones of the group. Now, when it comes to this list with LG being number 1, I'm going to disagree with my own rankings. I understand why LG's rated number 1 because techs love LG's products and Consumer Reports always rates LG's super high, but the user scores for LG were the lowest, and I tend to agree with this. I am concerned about the lifespan of heat pump assemblies and managing lint, and the LG has the weakest of the 3 heat pump systems, which means significantly higher drying times. GE's system doesn't have any cleaning system on the coils, it relies entirely on the filter. LG's system has a partial cleaning assembly, and the Samsung that we have here has a full condenser cleaning system, which removes the lint the best from the system when I tested about 30 to 40 loads of laundry. My personal opinion is I would rate the Samsung Bespoke AI #1 slightly, and I know it's hard to believe that Samsung would be #1, and I really don't like the looks of the system, but I think it's going to last the longest of the three. GE does have a better UI design and arguably a slightly better heat pump. When it comes to the ratings that you see here on the screen, I think the consumer reviews for the machines putting Samsung and GE neck and neck is probably the most accurate part of the rankings here when it comes to everything being considered. I think that those two are quite a bit better than the LG unit. And just remember though, when it comes to any of the units that you get that have a heat pump combo system, there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done on them when it comes to the systems. The filter in the units tends to be the biggest question or the biggest problem on these systems. You have to make sure that these are cleaned, and at least on the Samsung and GE units, there's two filters. There's a front and a rear that you have to take care of, and if you don't clean them out, it's just not going to dry very well, and then you're going to be dissatisfied because you spend a lot of money on something that doesn't work. Also, make sure that when you have one of these systems, they have drain pump filters on them at the very bottom. You want to clean them out every 3 to 6 months. Lint can settle down there because of how the filter and the condenser system works, and if you clean them out right, I think you can get between 7 and 9 years out of a machine, and if you actually ran it that long, you would save a ton of money due to energy savings. Now, we've gone over a lot of data and numbers and figures that we've made up in this video. I will have a link to all the hardcore data in the description. I spent a few hundred hours on this video trying to figure out what would make sense from #1 to #10 on the list and rank these units correctly. And I'm going to also have links to purchase all the machines that we mentioned in the video, and especially if there's updated model numbers. There's going to be some units that get phased out in the near future, and if you use the links in the video, it's going to help me buy more machines in the future to do more reviews, because we do get a little affiliate income from them that I would appreciate you helping the channel out with. Now, if you're wondering about the actual scores among the technicians, here is the list on all of the units on how we rated them for the video, starting with #1, working its way all the way to my idea at the very bottom. We rated them on reliability and repairability, and then just averages out to come up with the rankings for the machines and how we factored that. And I wanted to show you this for transparency, and again, you can see what #1 truly was on the list, which was the Speed Queen FF7. And we did break these out by front loads, top loads, and then high-end units and low-end units, because the transmissions tend to be different between the different models. Just because something says it's Whirlpool doesn't mean it's all the same machine on the inside, but some of them are, and that's one way I wanted to differentiate this test from other surveys that we could have done out there. Now, back to the ratings for the laundry centers, things have changed a lot over the years. At one point, I would have said that they're probably one of my favorite things to fix and sell, like the old Kenmore or Frigidaire stack washer dryer. But since those got phased out, well, it's been a lot different. And when I say a lot different, I mean it's terrible. If you look at technicians that look at or discuss and rate stacked laundry systems, there's a huge delineation between modern front-load stack systems like this and the older classic style that we grew up on that ended up becoming high efficiency and having massive revisions in the past 10 years. But you don't have to just take my word for it. Here's the scores so you can see for yourself. Tech feedback as well as consumer reviews point to all this information being true. The front-load stack systems had higher ratings across the board by significant margins. Now, Consumer Reports doesn't review stackable units. Knowing how Consumer Reports rates their front loads and top loads, I know that Consumer Reports would back this up as well, even though not everyone loves them. For rating the laundry systems, there's a lot of small variation on the different makes and models out there, and this list is a bit simplified given how much space I could do when it came to the analysis. You have all the major brands here with LG, Electrolux, Samsung, Speed Queen. There are additional makes and models out there, but I included the most popular ones to come up with this composite ranking, as the variations did not change the results very much. And as the common theme on this video, LG was ranked again #1, but it only barely edged out Electrolux for the top ranking of laundry center units. This WKEX200 that I conveniently have for the video ranked higher than the ELTE 7600, but that is an amazing unit. When it comes to these scores, the Samsung Bespoke Tower is a lot newer than those two designs, and it doesn't have a ton of reviews, but consumers seem to rate it quite well so far. But when it comes to techs again, not so much. At any rate, the reasons that the top load stacks are so low on the list, or why I would dissuade you from choosing one, is that they are extremely low capacity while being rather poor on reliability. They aren't actually easier to repair than front loads in most respects. Front loads do take a little bit longer to wash, but given the differences in tub size, you can just throw a lot more clothes in any of the front load laundry centers and make up the time in extra capacity, since they run about 4.5 cubic feet versus 3.5 at the best for the top loaders. Now, the one downside to this is that when it comes to laundry centers, if say your dryer goes bad, you have trouble operating the washing machine potentially. And when I say that, one consideration that you can make is if you purchase an LG or Samsung front load set that you stack, you can always download the application for the washing machine and dryer and then just run a remote start. So you can just simply log into your cell phone and choose to use it to start the load of clothes, not having to use the UI at the very top of a traditional stack set. That way, if it breaks down, you can always take one out and replace it instead of both at the same time. It's possible that more than LG and Samsung have the applications for remote start, but I at least know that those two have the capacity. The last segment that I wanted to discuss in depth in this video is the 24-inch narrow systems. They're much more popular in Europe than they are here in the US, but it's something that you may need to consider for certain washrooms. If you're in the US, your choices are going to generally be between LG, Electrolux, Bosch, Miele, and GE, among others. Here's the major list that we had of the 7 major options that you could choose from in the US. I'll be honest, there isn't a ton of feedback for these in our country, but it's no surprise that the foreign systems rate quite highly compared to American units and even some of the Asian ones. But one caveat to the 24-inch European systems are that they can be hard to get parts for at time. Now, on the European side of things, for people that are watching this video outside the US, you don't have to take my word for anything being good or bad. We have the same methodology, at least for the consumer ratings for all the European brands. I looked at the various retailers throughout Europe and came up with the same composite ranking that we did in the US for consumer ratings, but went by brand instead because of how much more variation there is between the different units in Europe. When you look at the list of the European brands out there, the top 5 are Miele, AEG, LG, Bosch, and then Samsung among the common machines that were available in most European countries. Now, in the inverse, there are 3 brands to avoid in Europe, and the bottom 3 were Haier, Beko, and Indesit. Being an American, I can't really speak to any of these brands too much that aren't available here, other than to say that Indesit is so bad, even I know that they are terrible based on the European technicians I've talked to. Now, if you're in the United Kingdom, you have the privilege of a much better YouTuber than me for the European market in Paul from How to Repair. He has done a lot of maintenance and repair videos as well as recommendations. He definitely recommends the eBack systems that are available exclusively in the UK. They cost a little bit more, but have a 7-year warranty with them. They're probably the speed queen of Europe if I was going to make a reference to anything. I think that those look to be pretty good units, and I wish they had them here in the United States, because compared to, say, the FF7009WN, they're a fraction of the price for a great warranted system, and they look really cool for British steel. Now, finally, there is a last group of washing machines that I haven't talked about practically at all on my channel. That is portable washing machines. The smaller size top loads that can be set anywhere that a washer normally isn't located. Here's the big secret about them. A lot of them are like TVs. There's only a few manufacturers in the entire world, and they're practically all in China. Most of the parts on the machines are going to be either Haier, Midea, or Hisense. Those are the 3 OEMs of practically all the machines on the market. The real difference between any of them is going to be your tub size and what the UI does for you, and there are about 3 or 4 major variations on that. The irony is, when it comes to those very simple portable machines, they're not very bad because they're just too simple to break. But the challenge with them is going to be finding warranty support or post-warranty support if you have a problem, because the parts can be difficult to get. Probably the one brand I would recommend that we've been dogging this entire video is Midea, because they tend to be the largest OEM of those portable washing systems. If you're in the US, they go under the name Comfy on Amazon. They're not the best units, but the ratings on them actually tend to be pretty good, and at least then you should be able to get some sort of parts support if you have that problem, because again of how ubiquitous Midea is as a company. I would try to stick with that brand because you should be able to get some schematics for them, but I can't guarantee it. I would avoid models that look too unique in the portable market, because if it is an oddball design, the chance is that it's going to be some niche assembly plant that is not going to have parts available to you to repair the machines if you have an issue. That portable is going to go by the dumpster when you have a problem, and I like to avoid that as much as possible. And there you guys have it. Every one of the best machines that I could come up with using this methodology that I could think of to possibly fit your situation. I've learned that washing machines aren't a one-size-fits-all thing. My list is not going to be perfect, but I think it's going to be the best you're going to find. One thing that I want to mention is that even though we only pick the top 10 for top loaders, the top 10 for front loaders, and then the stacks and ones, I'm going to again have a list of everything in the description so you can look at 50 to 100 different machines. I'll also have the YouTube collections in the description because some of the models will phase out over time, and any of the models that we talked about could change slightly. We'll keep updating those for the next year or two, because how long it took me to figure this out, I'm only going to do this video about once every 2 years. And I want to conclude with one final tip. When I went to ASTI 2025, the one thing Samsung and Speed Queen could recommend and agree on was the fact that you need to read your manual. So much of the machine's reliability is going to come from knowing how your machine works. If you read the manual, you're going to find very unique tips and tricks for your specific washing machine to allow it to last a whole lot longer. Even a bad Samsung can work a lot better than a good Speed Queen if you don't run it the right way. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great day.